Rated M for mature.
Persistent security officer Zimri Ader. Ship is overrun with mutants. The crew, all dead.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Monday Show 38. I'm your host, Wes. With me, as always, my good friend, Ruuts. Ruuts, how are you doing on this fine Monday morning?
Good. It's supposed to be pretty hot today, so no rain here. Like you were just saying, you have some rain coming. We just have some sunshine coming here in Colorado, so be a good
You know
day.
what's hot 10 times out of 10?
What's that?
The Monday Show, bro.
Yeah.
And we got another hot one today. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to get it out on Monday this week. You think it's going to work out?
I don't know. Well, with our previous luck, probably not. It's one of the reasons why it's good that we're going live soon, because you can mess up live, but it's a lot harder as far as delays. So
Yeah, you heard Ruuts right, ladies and gentlemen. We are taking the Monday Show live very soon, hopefully as soon as next Monday. But before that, we need to have a series of successful tests. And that's what we plan to do this week. They're going to be done pretty much at random whenever we get the time. We're just going to jump on our Discord, shoot out a invitation to all of the members of our Discord. And within a few minutes, we will be live talking about God knows what. So if you would like to participate in these live tests, then please do, because we're going to need a few of you. First of all, be sure that you're subscribed. Be sure to click that notification bell so that when we go live or when we just publish a video, you stay informed. Secondly, and most effectively, I would imagine, join the Discord. All you got to do is scroll down. You'll see an invitation in the description. And, Discord's, it's good for so many other things rather than just knowing when we're going live. The conversation never stops there. So if you can't get enough VR, if you can't get enough gaming, it's 24/7 there, right?
yeah. There's always some good conversation going on, or some hypothetical being put out there. So it's a really good time for sure.
Yeah, it's a good place. Full of VR enthusiasts. A few game developers on there even that pop in from time to time. It's my favorite thing about doing this, Ruuts. It's the community.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I do keep saying we have the best one out there, and I'm not going to take that back, because we do. So
yeah, we absolutely do. And while the community is my favorite thing about doing this, there are other perks, of course. I don't hate it when we get early access to awesome games, Ruuts. And such was the case this last week when the good folks at Fire Sprite Games gave us access to the Persistence.
yeah.
And I know what you're thinking out there. Sorry, Ruuts. I know what you're thinking out there. This isn't a new game. This thing's been out on PlayStation VR for 2-3 years now. Well, what is old is new again, as on May 21st, this Thursday, not only is this coming to Steam VR, but it's also coming to Nintendo Switch, it's coming to Xbox One, and it's coming to PS4 in a flat capacity. So, Ruuts, I think that the very fact that this is coming to flat medium just speaks to the quality of this game.
Yeah. It's what I've said before. You don't see the VR going to flat games. That almost never happens. It almost never happens because the depth of the game is not there. You get into the game and you look around and you're like, I'm in this game and it's so cool. And then you get to a point where there's just not that much to bring you back in. This has everything that brings you back in. And the more I play it, the more I want to play it, which is the way a game should be. As you're building your character, you're progressing, you're getting stronger, you're coming up against enemies that used to own you. Now you're owning them. Different weapons unlocking, different crafting. There's just so much going to pull you back into this, and the gameplay is fun. And it's those guys are creepy as hell, Wes. When you're running around trying to hide from them, man. When they catch you, when they see you, they're not holding back. And what I like the most about it, and I haven't even gone as far as I know I'm going to see. I mean, that I keep running into new enemies, so there's a lot of depth to that as well.
Yeah, man, that depth. This game just screams depth. I mean, it seems like a flat game, right? And I think it says a lot that we're seeing this game now coming into PCVR, you know, years after it was initially released. But it absolutely holds up to today's best VR games, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on? I know a lot of people instantly in the Discord, and there's just those people out there. Oh, you got to use a controller. You have no hand presence. I'm not interested. It's garbage, and it just blows me away because I feel like they're missing out on such a good game. And not only such a good game, but such good games. There's so many games out there, like Resident Evil 7 or whatever. You just don't have hand presence, but you feel more present in that game or this game than you do in a lot of games where you're able to use your hands individually. It just seems to me it's very weird to me, very bizarre.
Yeah, and this game is a unique case in that respect because, you know, we've made no secret about it on this channel that we have no problem playing gamepad games in VR. But this one's a little bit different because it has these awesome looking hand and arm models that are fully animated. So even though you don't have, you know, 6 DoF hand presence in this game and you're playing with the gamepad, there is some sense of hand presence in there, even though you don't have one-to-one control of it.
Yeah, you definitely end up playing, not even feeling, you feel like your arms are in there, especially when you're getting to the cutscenes and they're doing all the different stuff. I don't know, I was blown away by that. I was blown away by just the aspect of what you're doing. I was able to make it to the second level, and I feel like the more I progress into this game, the harder it becomes, which is supposed to happen. I'm sure this isn't going to be a case for you. But I had a moment where I saw that normal was like it said that it was hard, and there was the easy mode, and then I was like, do I do easy so I can see the game more, or do I play at least normal? And then I saw something that said the persistence is made to be hard, and I thought, oh man, I can't wimp out on this. You know what I mean? Like, it's supposed to be difficult. So I feel like going to the easy mode would just almost be doing a disjustice to the game. If it's supposed to be hard, I want it to be hard. I'm assuming you're the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's my general attitude anyway. But with this game in particular, you know, aptly named, by the way, the persistence, you have to be very persistent to progress in this game. But I almost feel like if you were to take the easy level on it, that it might even be harder to progress because, like you said, it is meant to be hard. And the only way to progress your character and progress your equipment is by dying. And if it's, you know, way easier, then you're not going to die as much, which means fewer opportunities to upgrade your gear, to upgrade your clones. So, you know, it's one of those weird ass backwards moments where actually easier might be harder.
Yeah, and you probably wouldn't get as many. Well, depending on how many enemies you have in hard. Because I know if you're like me, you're trying to stem cell everybody that you come across. When I have to kill somebody in a way that doesn't give me anything for it, I'm like, that sucks, man. I want to sneak up behind them, steal their stem cells. Or what I found with some of these guys is they're coming to attack me. If I use my shield and shock them, it'll throw them off balance towards the other direction. You have that window to now get the back of their skull with the stem cell thing, and that's pretty cool. And so far I've only came across 2 different guns. I think one of them is the Stinger or something, I don't know, and then some pistol or whatever, but both of the guns were cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else I can find or craft as well.
Yeah, man, how satisfying is it when you time one of those shield blasts just perfectly enough to turn the guy around so that you don't have to bludgeon him to death. You can actually still get those stem cells even though your stealth tactics didn't work out.
Yeah, no, I think maybe I found the Sentinel as well, so 3 guns. But yeah, no, it's definitely satisfying, and it's equally dissatisfying when you have to kill him with a shot to the face. But I got to a point, Wes, where there was like 5 guys coming at me, and I was killing one, and then the next would be there, and it was getting chaotic, and then of course, I didn't survive that altercation, but there's just a lot of cool things about this. Even the super sense, using that to kind of give you that brief glimpse of people walking around, which direction they're heading. You got the one guy that I guess doesn't see very well or has no vision at all, but super hearing, and they shoot like crazy. I mean, as soon as they hear you, bam, they're shooting. So you're always creeping around in this game, and it gives you a lot of satisfaction for sneaking up on people, or you can just go crazy and kill people, but there is a risk to that as well.
Yeah, it's one of those cool things that you can play it how you want. It's a stealth-based sci-fi horror first-person shooter game, and you can go charging in head first, but it won't be long before you're dead if you do it that way. So it kind of forces you to play stealth, and that super sense just comes in handy so much because these enemies are everywhere. Every time you die, the map changes, so you never really know where any items or enemies are going to be. One cool thing about that, though, well, there's many cool things about it. One cool thing is the map system. There's maps all over the wall, and you actually have a personal map too that's fully 3D that you can bring up by pressing one of the buttons on your controller. It pops up right in front of your face, and it's this super 3D effect, and it's really cool looking.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely really cool. I don't use that one as much as I do the one on the wall. Now, what do you think about those teleport things? Because as you go up, get further in the levels, you'll start to have these teleport doors going up or down, and so you're trying to look at the map and see, okay, well, obviously it's not the door that I see on the map has got to be on a different level. But what I found was interesting about these things was the way the patrols, man, they're like all over the place. You might be hearing somebody, they're above you, below you. All of a sudden they're through the teleport, or they're going back through the teleport. So it makes it a lot more difficult to know exactly where they're going to be. And I feel like the patrols are really good because a lot of games like this with stealth, you're constantly watching them, but it's pretty easy to figure out what they're going to do. But it seems like they, out of the blue, they'll just turn a different direction, start doing weird stuff. Maybe they've heard something, or they're, like I said, they're going through the teleports, coming back. It just makes it a lot more sketch because you never know where they're going to come from.
Yeah, those teleportation devices, along with the exploding panels on the floor, really keep you on your toes because sometimes you'll think you're safe, and then you'll get a rude awakening that you are not safe. You'll step on one of those panels, it'll blow up. One of those guys will hear you, and all of a sudden, you're fighting for your life.
Yeah, they come running quick, like in the beginning on that first part where that guy just burst through the door. That's really how it is once they figure out that you're there. And it has the same aspects of like if you briefly get glimpsed by someone, you can duck behind. It shows like a triangle, and gives you a little bit of time to hide, but it's not much. And if once they've seen you, that's it. They're gonna come barreling at you. So I definitely.
Yeah.
But
I thought I was one of those guys saw me once, and I thought I was going to be safe if I crawled in one of those crawl spaces. But sure enough, the guy followed me right in there and got me.
yeah, they'll follow you in there, and then now you have less room to maneuver. And at the beginning, you only have that harvester and your shield, so you're forced to melee, and the melee is good too. That's one of the things I like about this as well, because how many shooters do you have where the guy's coming at you, you've run out of bullets or whatever, and now you're screwed because like in real life, I can hit anybody with anything, and I think that's the way I want it to be. If you've got this harvester in your hand and that's all you got, you're going to be swinging at that guy hoping to kill him. And I found out I can, so it was nice.
Yeah, and it's cool because you can progress that aspect of yourself just as much as any other aspect. You can fabricate melee weapons if you find a melee fabricator. You can use your stem cells to upgrade your melee damage when you're fighting. So really, if that's your bag, you can play it that way too.
Yeah, or increase your health or just whatever. So, and it's not cheap either. Those stem cells, like the first one was 500 for a couple of different things. The other were 2,000, and then when I used the 500, it jumped to 2,000. So or no, it was 5,000 for some of them. So like I would imagine you're going to get more stem cells as you go along, as you get more progressed. Maybe they'll drop more, or you'll find more, but it's not cheap. So I mean, again, it gives you all these reasons to go back in because you're constantly trying to increase your stats, increase your guns, unlock the guns, get armor. I mean, there's just so much to this, and that's why this game is being ported to flat, because it has a legit flat game feel as well, and the depth of it. So
Yeah, it's so replayable, man. And normally I don't particularly care for the procedurally generated uh, games because the levels are just so repetitive and boring, but you don't get that here. The levels change on such a drastic level uh, that it's always fresh. And the destinations that you're trying to work to, those are not procedurally generated. Those are fully, pre-rendered. Only their location changes, right? So the route you take to get to them is different. And, it was the ultimate testament to how much replayability this game has, because the first time I played it on PC last week, I made all this progress in it, but the save feature is based on online, so you have to be connected to the internet for it to save your game, and it didn't save my game at all. So when I went back in it the next time, I had to start over again, but I really didn't care. I enjoyed playing through that first deck again just as much as I did the first time, because it was completely laid out differently. And, I feel like I could probably play that first deck over and over and over again. It'd probably take a while before I got tired of playing it.
yeah, hopefully you'd have some progression though, because I want to unlock stuff. But yeah, I feel the same way. It's definitely replayability is fun, and story is really good. The premise of what it is, and the AI, and how it's you're being brought back alive, and every time you die, you're just put into a new shell. And I don't know. It says that I don't know if the characters are going to start costing money or not. I'm assuming at some point, because it says they're free right now. And if maybe they'll give you different choices, because there's different stats, like you're getting engineer and you have 25% more to research, or I don't know what the hell it was exactly, but you had different stats that bonused at the beginning. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, it's awesome that the story ties in all of this, all of this stuff. The fact that you continually die and come back to life, the fact that the levels are all changing every time you die. The story actually explains that, and there's a reason for it within the confines of the story. It's a very creative story. It's a very creative and nuanced game. And what you're saying there about the different clones that you inhabit each time that you die and come back, the way it works is you're entering these clones, and initially you're just entering clones of your original living body. But as you progress through the game, you find other crew members, and you collect their DNA profiles so that you can clone them. And every crew member has their own talent, their own ability. So if you choose to do so, you can spend some stem cells and clone a different clone, which has different abilities. And you can very much use that as you progress through the game and you encounter different sorts of challenges. You can tailor which clone you're using to the challenge that you're facing at that time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it just shows you more depth to it, right?
Yeah, I think depth is really the name of the game here. Every aspect of it. I mean, this game does so much that I don't like on paper, but it's done so well that I love it. Like, I don't like procedurally generated games, but it's done so well that I love it here. I don't like grinding games where I have to collect a bunch of stuff and try to progress every little aspect of the gameplay, but it's done so well here that I love it here. So it just goes to show, especially in VR, all things are possible with gaming. Your tastes themselves can actually be shifted if the game is done right. And I got to say, Roots, this is, I said it on PSVR that it was one of the best PSVR games that you could play. And I think the same holds true on PC as well. It's one of the very best PC VR games today.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how long it's going to take to beat, but it's what, $30, right? That's definitely, to me, is worth the cost of admission for sure.
Yeah, and you can even get your friends involved with you in this thing. I haven't tried it yet, but there's a companion app to this where your friends can follow along and watch your action in game, and they can either help you out or they can set the enemies against you to make your time more difficult and challenging.
Sounds like a streamer option. You have
It
your
absolutely does.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
But anyway, there's tons of different game modes. Again, the game constantly changes around you for infinite replayability, top-notch graphics and sound. How about how good this game looks, Roots? I went back in it this last time and cranked the super sampling externally up to 150, and man, it was just so beautiful.
Yeah, see, I didn't do the externally. I need to check that. I put it on internally, cranked it up, and it looked good, but it definitely will be good to see on the outside as well.
Sound on point, haptics even. I noticed this last time playing, Roots, as you take steps through some of these decks that you can feel your footsteps in the controller.
Man, it's crazy, right? And getting under, crawling around, just everything about it. Yeah, I just think this is such a complete game. And how much have you made? Like, have you crafted a lot of different stuff? I've crafted a couple weapons, but that's about it. I need to check out the armory and see what some of the other stuff is.
Yeah, I'm very careful about what I craft because when you die, you lose those things. You can keep your stem cells and all the stuff you collect, but the actual items that you fabricate or find, you lose that when you die. So there's a couple of things I like to keep in my pocket just as a fail-safe, a backup insurance, if you will. One of the things is called the Ivy Serum, which is a melee weapon that is like a syringe gun. And the way you use it is when an enemy gets close, you hit them with them, hit them with it and inject them, and they instantly become your friend. So they protect you, and the next enemy you come to, they'll fight.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Sounds trickster. And trick somebody into fighting for you.
It's especially cool when you turn one of those giant dudes with the fire fists. When you turn one of those guys and get them on your side, they make a very powerful ally.
Yeah, well, I'll have to check that. I haven't tried that yet. I did get that serum at one point, but I think I ended up trying to use it, or didn't know exactly how to use it. So, but yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Looks like you're
pretty much just use it like a melee weapon. You just hit them with it when you get a moment.
Yeah, you've already used a couple of things that the swarm droids. I never used any of those either. I saw you using the gravity gun earlier. I didn't, so you got a lot of, I guess you're either finding stuff or crafting it. And that's pretty cool.
Well, the other thing I like to keep as a fail-safe are the swarm droids. And you saw what they just do. They're pretty badass. They can clear out a couple of, or three even, enemies fairly quickly. And they're not that expensive. It's like 120 stem cells or something to craft that. Now the gravity gun was just something I found, and I decided that I wanted to use it. And to be honest, when I was recording this video here, I was being a little bit more liberal with the stuff because I wanted to make a good video and show people some of the things that you can craft. But there's like tons. Like I didn't even scratch the surface with it.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff you can craft. I haven't done very much either, but it's really cool.
Anyway, $30 on Steam VR this Thursday, May 21st. 100% recommend on my part. And if you want to see more, just click on this link right up here and you can watch this video here that's running in the background. I play through pretty much the entire first deck, over an hour of gameplay here. But again, it's not going to spoil too much for you because your playthrough is going to be completely different, right?
Yeah, and the only thing that would be the same would be the little bit of story that you see in the beginning, but that's not that big a deal. it's not going to be any groundbreaking thing, but yeah, it's definitely, there's the needle. I got the needle. That was pretty cool. Yeah. So far I'm having a lot of fun, and I want to go back in. I think about it, you know, usually I'll play a game for a while and maybe I'll go back in or whatever, but it doesn't make me think about it and want to go back in all the time. So it's doing a lot on that level as well.
Yeah, it's very addictive. And it's a funny juxtaposition because it can be so frustrating at times because it is hard and you do die. And it's one of those games that have you saying, screw this game, man. Oh, we'll just try it one more time. You know what I mean? It's one of those.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's one of those that stay on your mind until you go back in.
Yeah. So do you know how many levels there are? Is there like or a set amount, or is each one different in that respect, or?
There's 4 decks. I know
Okay.
that. I've never really beaten the game, so I don't know if there's some 5th secret level or not, but as far as I know, there's just the 4 decks.
Okay. Cool. Well, we'll have to see. Have Scion let us know when he beats it.
You know who else loves 4 decks?
My mom!
Who doesn't love 4 decks though, you know?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, the Persistence live this Thursday on all major gaming platforms. $30. Recommend it. Pick it up.
Absolutely.
Grandpa Bill! Grandpa Bill!
This is my old coat. I'll tell you about my younger days. There I was, surrounded by enemies all alone, like sausage in a house with 10 starving cats.
But Grandpa, what about Charlotte?
Oh, yeah. Of course, let's save Charlotte.
So we've talked about Guns and Stories Bulletproof on this channel a few times, you know, as it has, you know, released through PC and then on the PlayStation VR, and then just this past month on the Quest. It continues to come up in our news cycle, and we continually lament the fact that we've never actually tried to play this game because it looks cool. It looks like some arcade style fun. So when it did actually come to the Oculus Quest recently, I felt like this was a good opportunity for us to have, you know, a good excuse rather for us to get in and give it a shot. And that's just what we did just yesterday, actually. And Ruuts, what did you think about Guns and Stories Bulletproof?
I had a lot of fun. I will say that I wanted to either drink out of that bottle, or I wanted to pour something out of that bottle. I wanted to smash the bottle. I wanted to shoot the bottle, and I couldn't do anything with those. I just had a bottle in my hand. I'm like, why the hell do I have a bottle in my hand? And then the story changed, and all of a sudden it turned into a gun, and I thought that was pretty cool. It was like an old grandpa telling his kid, you know, or his grandson this story, and you know, you can't tell if he's really embellishing or what, because things start getting so crazy and things change halfway through, and all of a sudden he's like, well, no, you had this gun in your hand, and you're like, all of a sudden you got 2 different guns in your hand, or you got a machine gun in your hand, or whatever the story was telling. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I think I messed up, Wes, and I guarantee you didn't do this because you were playing on the Quest version and I was playing on the PC. But you know, I've been doing this thing lately where I think, I'll just sit down for this game. And I didn't utilize the barrels or anything to hide behind at all. I think I made it a lot more difficult because I was watching this person's gameplay and they were like literally down and like peeking over and using it as cover like you're supposed to do. And I would imagine you did very well on the quest just because you have so much mobility. But no, I had a lot of fun playing this game.
Well, to be honest, I played both ways. I started standing and ended up sitting down. I didn't use cover all that much because the defense function in this game is so effective that I didn't really find myself having to dodge all that much. You can deflect the bullets with your gun. So as long, and it's not hard to do, as long as you're in the general vicinity, it will deflect the bullets. So if you're dual wielding, as long as you've got one pointed this way and the other one pointed that way, you're going to block 90% of the bullets without even trying.
What if you're one of those people like Ruuts that dual wields and uses both of them as a double barrel, and wherever I'm shooting is the same, and because you can really annihilate people fast that way, but you don't have that extra bit of movement, and you run into the part where all of a sudden you've got one machine gun, and that's where things started getting crazy. At least I think that was the third level, but I'm not sure. All I know is that it just got hard, and I died a couple times, and was like, yeah, I gotta save this for a different day because I don't want to break my TV. But I was really impressed with for one, I felt like I was shooting Woody a lot of times from Toy Story. Some of those characters look like him, and I felt a little guilty. But it was a lot of fun, and like you said, you can also not only knock them, but you can shoot the bullets out of the sky. So it definitely made it pretty interesting. So
Yeah, this is a wave shooter, and we've had tons of wave shooters in VR. So, if you're trying to sell a wave shooter today, you've kind of got to come up with some things to set yours apart. It can't just be the same as everyone else. And I feel like they've done that here in a couple of different ways. First of all, as what you alluded to a moment ago, the structure of the game is that you're living out the tale that this old drunk grandpa is telling to his grandson. And it's really cool. There's a lot of comedy in it. And there's constant narration, even while you're going through the levels. And it's funny because the enemies that you're fighting, they play the role just the same way you're playing the role. So if the grandpa stops telling the story for a moment, then all of a sudden the game just freezes, like your guns quit working. The guys will just hang out for a minute, start smoking a cigarette, getting a drink. And then when the grandpa picks up the story again, they start running at you, trying to kill you again. And I felt like that may have been one of my favorite things about this game, was just the comedy aspect of it and the character of the game.
yeah, it definitely added a lot, especially with like you said, where there was a point where the grandfather started to stop talking about it, and because at first he was like telling the grandson, go grab me a bottle of whatever alcohol, and then I'll tell you the next part of the story. The part where the story, he was ready to stop, and the kid's like, oh, I'm already getting you the next bottle, grandpa. It's kind of like he's controlling the story a little bit now. The grandfather's ready to stop, and the kids figured out, okay, now I can get grandpa to keep talking if I get him more alcohol. And I don't know, it just was really cool, just everything about it. And it was a lot better than I thought it would be. And the graphics were really good. What were the graphics on the Quest like?
They look really good, predictably at this point. I've quit doubting a talented developer's ability to make games look good in the Quest. They look good, and I think that the Quest gets a lot of unfair criticism these days because it isn't what it once was. I haven't played this on PC, but I've seen lots of footage, and the differences, from what I can tell, are very minute graphically.
Yeah, it looked really good for me on the PC for sure, and like I said, the gameplay was fun and it was unique. It was unique, like you said, a good wave shooter needs to be, because there's so many of them out there, and definitely not all of them need to be played, but I would say this one is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, man. The grandpa, as he's telling the story for this game, you quickly learn that Granddad loves his whiskey. And as you progress through the levels, and Grandpa gets drunker and drunker, he embellishes more. The scenes start to take on more of a unlikely a connotation. You start seeing things like drones in the sky back in the Wild West, drone attacks coming at you. And one of the coolest things about the game, and one of the things that really sets it apart, the guns start to get bigger, like way bigger and more intricate. And, outside of the storytelling and the comedy, I think the other thing that really sets this game apart are the guns. There's such a selection of guns. Every level has 2 or 3 different sets of new guns, and they're all very unique. They're not your standard, shotgun, pistol, machine gun. There's some really unique takes on interesting new guns.
Yeah. No, I definitely enjoyed every minute that I played. Now I want to go back and finish chapter 3. I think there was a bonus level, but I'm not sure. There's something else after chapter 3, but and it got pretty hard though. Wow, I don't remember this part. Or well, maybe I just didn't shoot all the ones up there. I do remember this part now. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this game a lot.
Yeah, I did as well. When you were sitting in this part and sitting on that train car on the track, were you like me? Because when I was sitting there, I really just wanted this game to turn into a rail shooter for just a minute, right? So we could start moving through the level and picking these guys off as we go.
Yeah, that was definitely something I would have liked to have moved. It definitely, looking at this, it reminded me how crazy it can get it with those guys up on the side too. I had so many things hitting me I didn't even know was shooting at me, and turned out there was a guy up to my side there just nailing me.
Yeah, like I said, the way I dealt with these situations mostly is I would shoot in both directions. So I would be shooting to my right and blind firing to my left. And, that takes care of a lot of defense as well because your gun's blocking the bullets. And it seemed to work pretty effectively for me.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, this is Guns'n'Stories Bulletproof. It's available on all major VR platforms, PC, PSVR, even on the Oculus Store and Steam, as well as Oculus Quest. Full cross-buy compatibility on Oculus, and just $10. Ruuts, recommend it 10?
Oh yeah, $10 easily. That's worth $10. Because I've played probably over an hour and a half, and haven't finished it. So you're definitely getting your money's worth, and there's replayability as well.
Yeah, there's a free demo in case you're not sure about it. It's called Guns'n'Stories Preface, and it's also a Viveport Infinity title. So if you're a member of that service, you can play for absolutely free.
Yeah, definitely worth it. Yeah, how many games have we been talking about lately that were on Viveport?
Well, I mean, there's like one every day, isn't there?
Yeah, it's definitely worth that cost of admission for sure.
What's funny is I got my next year of Viveport for less money than this game costs.
That's crazy, dude.
And this is a cheap ass game.
Yeah. And think about all the games you're going to get to play over that year's time, or try.
Yeah.
Try and figure out that you really like it and you buy it, right? Oh.
Yeah. The other game from Mirrorwind we just talked about on the last episode, Boiling Steel, it's on sale for $10 right now. And, also on Viveport Infinity.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. It's dirt cheap. We're going to miss these days, Ruuts. The good old, these are the good old days of VR, back when you could get games for less than $20 and had 10 new games come out every week.
Yeah, people are going to bitch. We'll say, remember, it's too expensive now, but we want AAA.
Right. Yeah, VR enthusiasts, I think sometimes is a misnomer, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, solid wave shooter. We've said it many times. Shooting's one thing that's very difficult to get wrong in VR. All you got to do is have a little bit of character, a little bit of something to differentiate yourself from the pack, and you've got a winner on your hands, and I feel like that's very much the case here.
Yep. I agree.
You know, Roots, it's exciting times. And, you know, my excitement level has been slowly increasing over the last several weeks. And it's not just me. I mean, you can see it, you can feel it pervade not only the VR community, but the larger gaming community as well, because we all know the truth that a generational change is at hand. And even if you're a PC gamer, the change applies to you as well, because as we discussed yesterday on our show, the games always have to cater to the lowest common denominator. And for the last at least 3 to 4 years, the consoles have been holding PC gaming back. And so as we approach this next console generation, we're starting to see a lot of excitement, not only from the console gamers, but the PC gamers as well.
Yeah, and there's just so much excitement. I was just as I was watching this, you know, and the new engines, and it's not even going to be new games, like remakes of all the ports going over to the consoles is going to be huge. You know, like Stormland or whatever games, Half-Life Alex, that just wasn't possible will be possible. And of course, who knows if Alex will go over there, because it's, you know, I'm sure Valve likes money, but they like exclusivity as well. Although people probably would disagree. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens. Is Valve going to be as open about everything and just share everything to the console? Because Gabe is so nice and you know, only cares about the VR community. And it'll be telling and interesting.
So what would you say if you had to bet whether or not we see Half-Life Alyx on PlayStation VR 2? What do you think? You think we'll see it?
I don't know. It depends on how much of this, you know, sharing back and forth keeps happening. It's possible. I mean, if, you know, if especially pushing the and everybody, I mean, pushing the whole genre, and everybody is so hyped and they really would love to see Half-Life Alyx. Part of me says, yeah, you know, why not? And then another part of me looks at the business model, and, you know, one of the only competitors, you know, PC people have would be the console VR, and, you know, you want your exclusive. So I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to think that it will, and only because history serves as an example, right? Because, you know, the other Half-Life games were PC exclusives as well, and over time, as the consoles got more powerful and beefier, they ended up releasing on Xbox as well as PlayStation 3. So I think we'll see very much the same thing. I don't think we'll see it anytime soon, but I feel like maybe in 2 years we could definitely see like a special edition of Half-Life Alyx released on PlayStation 5.
Man, that would be awesome. Tell you what, it could definitely run it, hands down. You know, it's just a matter of getting it ported over there. So anything is possible. That's what's nice about this. And, you know, think about how good the PCVR is going to be. And like you said, the games are being held back kind of from the consoles, but that won't be the case, because for a little bit the consoles will have things that the PC doesn't have, and so it'll be the PCs that are kind of holding back the content for a little bit anyway. That'll probably freak some people out, but that is the case. So,
All right. Well, again, I've been really excited about this next generation of gaming because, and we've had, endless conversations about it within the community over the last few days, and it's really just set me to thinking about, what is the next generation going to bring? Because I haven't really been all that excited over the last couple of generational, changes that we've had, because it's very much been the case over the last couple of decades, really, that a generational change has pretty much only brought just modest graphical improvements. You see the graphics get a little bit more realistic looking. You see the games get a little bit bigger, but beyond that, it hasn't really been a true generational leap. And I feel like this generation's different, and we started to see it first in VR last year with the new hardware, and then new software followed, and then coming all the way into this year, now we're starting to see some of the things the new consoles are bringing. But when it comes to the consoles, I feel like we're starting to see a bit of a divergence from one another. I feel like with the Xbox Series X, that they're kind of going for the status quo. They're not trying to break the mold here. Their main focus is on having another generational change similar to the last two, right? They want to just basically push better graphics and bigger games, which is, nothing new. Why would I say that? Well, I would say that because you can just read down this beefy spec sheet and see what an amazing box this next Xbox is going to be. I mean, they have a custom, Zen 2 CPU, 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, which is quite, blazing fast of its own right. 16 gigabytes DDR6 memory, a 12 teraflop RDNA 2 custom GPU. They claim to feature 4K visuals at 60 frames per second, also featuring 8K as well as 120 frames per second at regular HD resolutions, ray tracing, and near instant load times. So an amazing box here, Ruuts, but I really feel like it's just more of the same, beefed up specs so the games can get a little bit bigger, the load times can get a little bit shorter, and the graphics can get a little bit prettier.
Yeah, well, it's going to do all of that, but what it's not going to do is, at least for what the Sony's doing, is the audio. Seems like Sony's more focused on, not that they're not focused on flat games, because they still have their flat gamers out there, but the specs that they're focusing on are going to enhance VR in a way that is going to be next level. At least for the console players, the audio being as good as it sounds like it's going to be. And then we've talked about it before, not having those load times at all and freeing up the video card to where it's going to be able to render stuff instantly. It's just going to be amazing. Everything about it sounds like it's going to be up on the Xbox, but I mean, only time will tell, right?
Yeah, and and it isn't just on Xbox. We're seeing this this kind of graphical focus when it comes to the hardware. We've seen it in the last generation of graphics cards as well. The latest NVIDIA graphics cards were built around the ray tracing feature, right? Which is a more realistic lighting functionality. And, before it's always been too hardware intensive to ever do anything like this. But the latest graphics cards have specialized hardware, specialized processors built into them, just focused on doing the ray tracing. And this is something we've seen in the last generation of graphics cards. It's something that we're going to see in the next generation of consoles. And it further points out just what we were just saying, that the focus up to this point has been nearly fully graphical. And, that's not a bad thing. Who doesn't love beautiful games, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's other things to it as far as like, you know, not having to worry about that headroom to render everything in around you at the same time, is going to be next level. And we were just talking about, you know, Tobii eye tracking, and, you know, I mean, think about that. If you got the Tobii eye tracking with that technology, and so not only is it not rendering everything else, but it's also knowing exactly where you're looking and what they could free up that way as well. I think bringing all the technology together is going to give us something we can't even comprehend right now.
Yeah, so what you're talking about there is another feature of current gen hardware, or next gen rather, when it comes to VR, and you're talking about eye tracking when paired with dynamic foveated rendering. So the hardware is modified in such a way that it can track your eyes and determine what you're looking at, and then the software comes in and, you know, puts less detail in the things you're not looking at and more detail in what you're focused on. And generally what that does is it frees up system resources, whereas before the whole thing had to be rendered out fully. Now just the center thing that you're looking at has to be rendered out fully. And not only is that going to allow the top end graphics cards to do things that they've never been able to do before, but it's also going to allow the low to mid level graphics cards to do what today's high level graphics cards are doing.
Yeah. And then you combine that with varifocal lenses, and, you know, I think that really will be the biggest game changer when it hits, just as far as like, you know, our eyes aren't designed to look at everything in the same blur or the same resolution. It's supposed to be different. You know, you see stuff out of the corner of your eye and it's kind of blurry. You know, so putting all that together, I think, especially with that technology that's not at PC yet, but for the hard drives, it will be the standard eventually, because it's just so good, and it's gonna only utilize what it needs to. I think it's gonna make everything next level.
Yeah, when it comes to varifocal, I kind of look at varifocal lenses as the cherry on top of the eye tracking with dynamic foveated rendering. So you've got this this new software with the dynamic foveated rendering that is just by nature going to kind of blur your peripheral vision. And the whole idea behind varifocal lenses is to change the way that we see things in VR on a very fundamental level. And what it's basically doing is it's going to allow almost perfect reproduction of realistic vision, for lack of a better term. You know, the way VR headsets work today, it's kind of a smoke and mirrors trick with the stereoscopic 3D that provides the illusion of depth. With the varifocal lenses, it's going to accurately reproduce the way light works in the real world. So it's going to be one of those things that's not easy to put your finger on why it seems more realistic. It's just one of those things that you're going to be able to feel when you get into VR. And then, like you said, when you pair that with the eye tracking and the dynamic foveated rendering, what we're going to get is a leap in realism, you know, on orders of magnitude greater than anything we have right now.
Yeah. Plus, I would imagine that for developers, you know, if you don't have to use the smoke and mirrors, it's going to be a lot easier to, well, maybe it won't. Who knows? I don't know anything about writing games. This could be a completely different way of looking at it. But definitely interesting times. I think we are heading to immersion levels of we can't even fathom, especially when you add in AI and the things that it's going to do, and the little perceptions that we don't even notice, that we don't notice. It like you said, it'll be hard to put your finger on it. It's like, why does this gen feel that much more immersive? And then you'll, for at least for Sony, you add in the what they're doing with their audio. You know, I think that's going to be next level, just on the level of what you were saying, those ear things are going to bring to the Rift S or whatever. This technology they're working on for their console, PS5, from what you're saying and what the stats say, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, what you're talking about there is a feature that is present in the next PlayStation called Tempest Audio. And what Tempest Audio is rather than license existing 3D audio technology like Dolby Atmos, Sony has decided to do all of the work on 3D audio on its own. And what the result of that work has been is the Tempest engine. And the Tempest engine is effectively the hardware chip inside the PS5, which makes all of this fancy new 3D audio tech possible. Digital Foundry described it as a re-engineered AMD GPU compute unit stripped of all its caches and solely relying on DMA transfers. So basically you have a repurposed graphics chip that is set inside the PS5, and the only thing this processor is set to doing is rendering realistic 3D audio.
Yeah, it sounds something like I want to be a part of for sure. You know, and the more I hear about this PlayStation 5, it makes me super excited because it seems like Sony's really focusing on going to the next level versus, like you said, with Xbox, just more of the same. And I'm sure it'll be an amazing console. It's just not going to be next level like the PS5. That's my prediction anyway. I think PS4 walked away with the award of the better console in the Xbox One, and I think they're going to do the same thing with this new version. But I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, I tend to concur with you here. I think it's a different vision coming from Sony this generation, not only from Xbox, but from themselves in previous generations. They're really focusing here on new features, and the Tempest Audio as a VR enthusiast is one of the most impressive and exciting things. You know, it's not just having dedicated hardware to render out 3D audio. PS5's new Tempest engine will support hundreds of sound sources. Ruuts, normally we've got about the 3D audio we deal with today deals with about 10 to 20 different sound sources at once from all around you. PS5's Tempest engine is going to simulate hundreds of sound sources, meaning that it will appear that sound could be coming from hundreds of different locations around you as you hear it in game. When you have something like raindrops, you'll hear them coming from all around you as they hit the ground, hit the items around you. It's going to help increase your sense of presence as if you were transported into the game world. And as a VR enthusiast who's been, you know, delving in with 3D audio more and more over the last couple of years, you, unlike the common flat gamer, understand what this, you know, exponential scaling up of 3D audio is actually going to mean to the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I would imagine even somebody that's playing maybe the console and they had headphones, they were playing this game or whatever, it would be next level as well, but nothing like in virtual reality where, you know, every little thing increases immersion, and having that audio be that spot on to the point where, you know, you got 100 different directions from where things can be coming from. That's going to be next level, I believe.
Yeah, and you know, it's not just that, Ruuts. It's not just that they have custom hardware built in to do this. It's not just that they're scaling it up, you know, to hundreds of different sound sources. Audio researchers at Sony have referred to how we hear as a combination of frequency as well as direction. And they measure that by something called head-related transfer function, or HRTF. And HRTF is unique to every person, and it's based on the shape of your ear and the shape of your skull. And Sony has studied HRTF, you know, over the last few years, heavily studied HRTF, and at launch, there's going to be at least 5 different profiles based on their studies of over 100 different people with different ear shapes and different skull shapes. And based on those 5 bass profiles, you're going to be able to customize the sound even further by listening in it and going through some calibration on your console. So again, we have dedicated hardware. We have a scaling up of all the different sound sources, the different volume, and we have customized audio down to the very shape of your ear canal roots.
Wow. So I have it like different selections, like small, medium, large, and extra large head, like super crazy, because everybody's head is different. So I wonder if it'll show a picture and you'll just be like, okay, I'm kind of like that. But it'll be interesting to check them all out and find that one that just sounds the best, right?
It's going to be great, because not only is it going to provide a whole new level of immersion for us VR gamers, but it's one of many examples on the new console of things that are going to introduce the flat gamer into immersive gaming. Even though they might not all go and put the headset on right away, through the use of 3D audio, through the use of haptics in the new DualSense controller, Sony is beginning to introduce their flat players into things other than graphics that can increase your immersion. The effect this is going to have is it's going to open up the eyes of the flat gamer the way that VR opened up our eyes, and it's going to hopefully break the mold in future generations that has previously been so graphics dependent. From now on, I would imagine that graphics is just going to be one thing in a spectrum of things that they can focus on.
It's only good for all of us gamers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And aside from the Sony console and aside from the new features, I don't think that it's the new features really that are going to define the next generation of gaming. As I look through the new technology that continues to be leaked and continues to be released, I see one common underlying factor in the vast majority of it. And it goes back to what we were talking about with the eye tracking and the dynamic foveated rendering. What makes that such a game changer is the optimization, right? It allows you to optimize your resources and spread them further. And as I look through the different technologies that are coming out, I think the one main thing that underlies all of them is the big things are based around optimization. Another great example of this was something that NVIDIA did just a few months ago with the variable rate super sampling on their RTX cards. You remember that they released these profiles for a number of games, some of them VR games, and it does basically, with super sampling, the same thing that foveated rendering does with field of view. So it takes what you focus on and super samples it automatically, heavily, and takes what you're not focused on and renders it out at 1.0 or even less in some cases. But again, the effect this has is it optimizes your system resources.
Yeah, it just allows the devs to put them somewhere else, or need to if they want. And then having that, as well as teamed up with all the other things we just talked about. I just think that we're getting to a point now where it's not going to be that difficult for future devs to really push the boundaries and give us things that we've never seen before, graphically especially, but everything else. So it's really going to be a generational leap this time, unlike anything we've ever seen before, if all of these technologies progress to their full potential. And the ones we've been mentioning here are all hardware based, but take what we're looking at here, for example, the Unreal Engine 5, right? They unveiled two new technologies during their little demo thing here. One of them being Lumen, which is a fully dynamic
global illumination system that immediately reacts to scene and light changes, as well as the nanite technology, which is virtualized geometry, which is basically what that is film quality source art comprising hundreds of millions or even billions of polygons that can be directly imported into Unreal Engine. Now, the cool thing about Lumen and nanite Ruuts is that they're scalable, they're compressible, and they take things like they take things that have previously been hardware intensive and compress them down at the software level. And why the biggest thing about both of those technologies that makes them so impactful is just what we've been saying. They optimize the hardware. They take the strain off the hardware, and it's all through software innovation. That's why it's so amazing, and that's why it's so exciting.
Do you think there's going to be a change for the video cards as far as the need for such powerful ones at some point where people just aren't, it's just not that big of a deal to get the super one because everything's so optimized and everything runs so well that you're not going to be so concerned about having something that's you need to push like a 1080 Ti several years ago or a 2080 Ti or even the new 3080s coming out soon?
You know, I'm glad you asked me that, and because, you know, honestly, when I was, you know, thinking last night about what the topic was going to be, and it occurred to me that that we should talk about optimization and the impact that it's going to have on the next generation of gaming. I asked myself that very same question, Ruuts. Are we going to get to the point where we don't need a new graphics card every other year? Is it going to get to the point now that you know, it's not necessary for people to plunk down $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 every other year just to keep up? And you know, how are the hardware developers going to feel about that? You know, when they can't, you know, peddle their products as frequently, what are they going to do with that new reality? I think it largely is going to depend on the game developers. I mean, when you talk about optimization and freeing up system resources, it's really up to the devs what they do with those resources, right? They can either put them into the game that they have in mind and run it more efficiently, or they can take the other approach and expand the game. If you have extra resources, you know, and it's up to the dev whether or not they want to take their existing game and jump it from 60 frames per second to 120 frames per second, or just keep it at 60 frames per second and just have a game that's twice as big, right? And if the devs continue to expand the scale of their games, to expand the detail in their environments and the realism, then I feel like the demand for the hardware should stay right about where it's at right now.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you think about the chances of people going to this new version of the I guess the new Sony 5, PlayStation 5, or whatever they're calling the Xbox, and then for whatever reason needing to go back to the Xbox One? I don't think people realize, or maybe if they've done what I did, you know, I started playing Destiny 2 on PlayStation 4 and played it with my friend for a while, and then I got it on PC when it came out on PC, and I played it for like a couple hours. And then I tried to go back to my old account on PlayStation 4, and my eyes could feel the 30 frames per second that it didn't feel before. And I think we're getting to a point now after this next generation drops where you're just 30 frames is just not going to cut it anymore. Like there is a difference, especially in a first person shooter when you're playing. You notice it mostly in PvP. But there's a reason why the professional first person shooter players play on 120 or 144, because your eyes, not only does it you're gonna be able to have a little bit of a advantage, but your eyes actually get used to it and it just feels right. And then when you try to go back to the slower speeds, it just doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah, I feel like the days of 30 FPS are over. Both consoles, as a standard, have set 4K 60 frames per second, and I fully expect them both to achieve that. Xbox obviously doing that through raw horsepower, stacking of components, and Sony doing it not only with horsepower, but through what we've been talking about here, optimization. It's the customized optimization of PlayStation 5 is what makes it such a special machine. And I don't want to go into a technical deep dive on it here because I think we have other things we have to do, and we don't want to have a 10-hour long episode. But the entire console of the PlayStation 5 has pretty much been custom made. All the components are custom made. The motherboard's custom made. Everything's custom configured with optimization in mind. Doing it faster, doing it better, getting more from less. And that's why I feel like, the common ignorant flat gamer who just engages in groupthink and doesn't really think for themselves, if they just buy into the hype of the spec sheet of Xbox X, they're really going to be missing out here, because even though Sony on paper has slightly lower specifications, the developers are all saying that they're able to get more out of it just because it's so highly optimized.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Is what the devs can do with it. It doesn't matter what your spec sheet says. It can be the best specs in the world, and if it's not optimized right, it can run like crap. So, not saying Xbox will. I'm sure it'll run phenomenal, but I agree with you. I think it is going to be next level.
I mean, it really is a different approach on every level. I mean, all existing gaming PCs and even the Xbox One or Xbox X, which in itself is just a beefed up gaming PC, they all have the same issue, right? It's cooling, right? The cooling determines how fast your processor can run, and how fast your processor can run determines how well your game can run. And why do we need cooling? We need cooling because of varying power, right? Power delivery to the chip, power delivery to the graphics. It's a constant problem to keep that stuff cool. Sony has flipped the variable power on its head and has set a constant rate of power. And the way that they've dealt with that is by allowing the processor and the GPU to work together to dissipate the power. And if you have constant power, then cooling becomes no longer a problem, because power to heat is a 1-to-1 conversion. If you know how much power you're using, you know how much heat's going to be generated at any one time, and it completely turns the equation on its head in the console by being able to have a constant power supply with a constant cooling supply.
Yeah. Everything you just said sounds about right to me, and it sounds like PS5 wins. That's my
I think
prediction.
So. I think so too, but really, it's as all things are when it comes to gaming, it's going to be up to the developers. Just because Sony builds this awesome new machine with all these different new technologies and optimizations, it doesn't mean that any of the developers are going to be able to use it, right? It's up to them to really use this thing and get and bring it to its full potential. So we'll know when the Sony first party games come out a year, 2 years down the line, maybe even 3, whether or not we were right about what this means for gaming. But regardless of whether Sony wins or Xbox wins or PC pulls out ahead very quickly, I think that one thing is for certain, and that is the next generation of gaming is going to be defined by optimization and getting more out of your hardware and software.
Yeah, man, it's definitely going to be a good future, Wes, for gaming for sure.
Yeah, I think so. For flat as well as VR.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got pages more of this. I could keep going forever, but you know, I don't want to waste your time and waste Ruuts' time here. If you want to keep this conversation going, I can talk about this stuff literally all day. Just ask Jarillo. How can you ask Jarillo? Well, again, you can do so by going down to the description of this video, clicking that invite, and joining our Discord all day, every day. Can't stop, won't stop, Ruuts.
Yeah, no, there's always a good discussion going on. So many different angles people come at it from, but everybody's respectful, and we're family. So,
yeah, I really wanted to get more technical in on this. I might end up making another video on it on another day, just based around the concept of optimization and give out all the examples, because there's way more than I even touched on here. This was just an overview of all the next gen technology and all the next gen optimizations. If you ever have believed anything I've said, people, believe this. There is cause to be excited right now about where we're going as gaming enthusiasts.
Yep. And we all know Westradamus knows what he's talking about. So we'll be talking about it on a future episode, and a year or two down the road, be like, remember, you said this, and you'll be like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're going to call 2022 the year of I told you so.
Yeah.
Anyway, friends, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and click the bell to keep up with the notifications. Again, if you've been subscribed and haven't clicked the bell, click it, because we're going to be doing some live testing this week, and we're going to need people in the chat to let us know what's up. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and oh, duh. You know, this shows you where our priorities are. Patreon. If you would like to support our channel and help us grow, you can do so by donating to us on Patreon. Doing so will give you access to our show notes every week, as well as the occasional episode of The Money Show, which is a collection of outtakes from when we shoot our content.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the show notes this week has a lot of technical stuff in there that Wes didn't even go over. So that alone, right, is worth it.
Pages and pages of it on consoles, on PC hardware, and stuff, even other stuff that I didn't have time to put. You know, I could have did a page on ray tracing or VRSS, but I just wrote the word here because I have a pretty good understanding of it in my mind and can talk about it without looking at notes. So, yeah, there's a whole page here on Unreal Engine 5 that we didn't even talk about, a technical description of what it is and how it's optimized. So yeah, show notes are a good read, sometimes better than others, but always good regardless.
Yeah, always informative, for sure.
Anyway, with that said, friends, we'd like to thank you once again for watching, and for Ruuts, I'm Wes. We'll see you maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. Sometime soon, live, right?
Yeah, exactly. Live and in living color,
yeah.
Hopefully. Anyway, thanks again, friends. We'll see you.
Stay easy.